shall cause
thy message to reach all the corners of the earth.
Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to another episode of RoundUp.
In today's episode, we have a lot of fun and fantastic reports from all around the world. So let's check out what we're doing today.
We start in the Ukraine in our special report. Then we look at telescopes and astrophotography. And finally, we head to Canada for an exciting look at Ottawa's Winterlude.
Before we get started, let's check out this week's headlines. Rian has the latest updates from around the world. Assalamu alaikum, Rian. How are you doing today?
Wa alaikum assalam, Nasser and Ghani Bhai. Alhamdulillah, I'm doing well, Jazakallah. Here are this week's headlines. China's humanoid robot, Taigong, just made history by climbing over 100 stairs outdoors in Beijing, proving its advanced mobility. Video shows it running along a river before tackling steep stairs, a first for robot psychic. Taigong can navigate rough terrain, including sand and snow, adjusting its movements in real time. Standing 163 centimeters tall and weighing 43 kg, it's fully electric and can run up to 12 kilometers per hour, like a marathon runner. Unveiled last April, it became open source in November. Developers hope it will soon be used in real-world jobs as tech keeps improving. And finally, dozens of people gather outside Rome's Gemelli Hospital to pray for Pope Francis, who's battling double pneumonia. The 88-year-old pontiff was admitted on February 14th after a week of illness. Pneumonia affects both the lungs and makes breathing difficult. Francis is at higher risk because as a young man he had pleurisy and had a part of his lungs removed. His condition has worsened, but doctors are monitoring him closely as the world hopes for his recovery. Those were the headlines for this week. Back to you, Nasser and Ghani Bhai. Jazakallah.
Jazakallah Rian for keeping us informed and up to date.
Now let's turn our attention to the Friday sermon, where Hadur Aidallahu Ta'ala bin Asil Aziz has once again provided valuable guidance and teaching for us all.
Rahil Nushman will take us through the key points in this week's sermon. Let's join the discussion now.
Assalamu alaikum and welcome to this week's Friday sermon discussion. Today we're talking about someone truly incredible, Hazrat Muslim Maud, the second Khalifa of the Ahmadiyya Muslim community.
He was not just a religious leader, but also an amazing thinker, writer and reformer. And today we're highlighting some of his contributions that still hold lessons for us today.
Let's start with one of his early works, his advice to Turkey in 1919. At the time, Turkey was struggling and he wrote a book called The Future of Turkey and the Responsibility of Muslims.
Instead of speeches or slogans, he urged Muslims to focus on action, education and intellectual growth. Even today, this advice is super relevant. Muslims around the world need to focus on progress through knowledge and unity.
And speaking of unity, in 1925 he wrote a pamphlet called Observation for the All Parties Conference. He explained that Muslims must politically unite, no matter their sects, to protect their rights and build a better future.
He also proposed the idea of a Muslim bank without interest. Imagine if that happened. It would have given Muslims financial independence.
That's actually genius, and the best part, he said if people didn't unite, the problem wasn't Islam, it was their own egos.
He also had a major impact in India's political landscape when British and Indian rulers held the Round Table Conference. Hazrat Muslim Maud anhu told Muslims to set aside their differences and select strong representatives. His book, The Solution to India's Political Issues, was so well written that even British politicians were impressed.
And let's not forget world peace. In 1946, he gave a powerful speech in Delhi saying that true peace isn't just about politics, it's about morality. If people respect each other and think of others before themselves, that's when real peace happens.
Hazrat Muslim Maud anhu didn't just talk about peace, he also stood up for the oppressed. In 1947, when people questioned why Ahmadis supported Pakistan, he said, no matter what, we must always stand with those who are wronged.
And speaking of Pakistan, he gave a lecture about how it could succeed. He said Pakistan should have laws based on Islamic teachings, but also protect the freedom of all religions.
And his knowledge wasn't just limited to politics. His Tafsir-e-Kabir, a grand commentary of the Holy Quran, is already 15 volumes long and could grow to 30. That's tens of thousands of pages of deep insights.
There's so much to learn from Hazrat Muslim Maud anhu. Even today, his writings help us understand Islam, unity, justice and progress.
So here's a challenge for our viewers at home. Find one of his books or speeches and read a part of it. You'll be amazed at how relevant his advice still is. That's it for today. Until next week. Assalamu alaikum.
Jazakallah Ruhail and Arshman for summarising the sermon, a great reminder for us all. Now, turning to a major ongoing issue, the war in Ukraine. Recently, peace talks have taken place, raising hopes for a possible resolution. The conflict has caused immense hardships, and many are looking for a peaceful way forward. Ghani has the latest developments.
Jazakallah. Let's talk about the latest updates in Ukraine war. Things are moving fast, and there's a lot happening with peace talks, political drama, and what might come next. So recently there's been a big shift in how the US is handling the war. President Donald Trump's team is pushing hard for a peace deal, and there have been meetings between US officials and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. The US has made it clear that they want the war to end quickly, but Ukraine isn't happy with some of the suggestions being made. One major issue? The US wants access to Ukraine's minerals as part of a deal. Zelensky is being pressured to agree, but he's holding out, saying security for Ukraine should come first. Trump's team is also facing some backlash. His vice president, J.D. Vance, says there's no way to stop the war without talking to Russia directly, and some European leaders are getting worried. France's president, Emmanuel Macron, has warned Trump not to be weak when dealing with Russia, saying if the US isn't tough on Putin, other countries like China might take advantage. On the battlefield, things are really intense. Russia continues to control about a fifth of Ukraine, and fighting is still going on along a huge front line. Some Ukrainian officials believe a ceasefire might happen this year, but they're not sure if it would last, or if Russia would just use it to prepare for another attack. There's also been a lot of talk about Ukraine's leadership. Trump called Zelensky a dictator, which didn't sit well with many people. The reason for this? Ukraine hasn't had elections because of martial law, which was introduced when the war started. Some Ukrainian politicians have defended Zelensky, saying elections just aren't possible during an active war. Others, like former President Petro Poroshenko, have stayed quiet, especially after being hit with government sanctions. Meanwhile, many Ukrainians say they'll decide for themselves who leads their country and won't let outsiders influence their choices. One thing is clear. Ukraine is at a crossroads. The US wants a peace deal, but their deal might not be what Ukraine is looking for. European countries are trying to step in, but Russia is still advancing on the ground. Whether this war ends soon or continues to drag on depends on the next few months. Let's keep the people of Ukraine in our prayers, hoping for real and lasting peace. Inshallah, better days will come.
A truly important issue indeed, and we continue to pray for peace and safety for all those affected. Now, let's shift our focus from world events to the wonders of the universe. Have you ever wondered how stunning images of space are captured? Well, today we're speaking to an astrophotographer who will give us a closer look at how telescopes help us explore the cosmos. Let's check it out now.
Assalamu alaikum. Have you ever wondered what it's like to look up at the sky and capture those beautiful moments? Well, today we're diving into the incredible world of astrophotography with someone who's an expert at it. Assalamu alaikum.
How's everything, dear brother?
I'm
you
good.
Right?
How are you?
Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah.
Can you tell us a bit about what got you into astrophotography?
So I bought this telescope. I took it up to the balcony in my house and I pointed it at one of the bright stars, which I had heard was Jupiter. And I could see the great red spot on Jupiter. It was amazing. And then I pointed it at the other star, which was next to it, that I knew was supposed to be a planet. And it turned out to be Saturn. I could see the rings. Right then and there, I realized that, you know what? Telling somebody what I saw is not as good as seeing. And I decided to try to take pictures of it. That, in fact, in astronomy is called astrophotography. And that's how I got started.
So we see you have some seriously cool gear here. Can you please show us some of the different telescopes that you use?
So these telescopes are used to photograph very, very small objects, really distant galaxies. And I'm talking 20 or 30, 50, or even 70 million light years away. Even further than that. If I want something a little bit more zoomed in, so that I get a little bit more detail, I'll use this 250 millimeter lens. This uses the more traditional guide scope, little guide camera. This is an imaging camera, a mini computer, and of course the automated focuser.
That's so clever. What about this telescope over here?
This one here is what I would call my mid-range telescope. So it's not for small targets, but not for really big targets either. It's for medium-range targets like galaxy clusters, so groups of galaxies, or it's for the remains of dead stars where you have a lot of smoke and gas just sort of all around. All of these targets, with the exception of the galaxy clusters, are quite relatively near to Earth. So that's what I would call a mid-range target.
Speaking of long exposure, what exactly does that mean?
When we say exposure, in your phone you've got a sensor, and in front of that sensor is a door. We'll call it a shutter. So when that shutter opens, it lets in light, and that's how a picture of me appears on your phone. If you were to point your phone up to the sky at nighttime, you'll notice that your phone takes a little bit longer to produce a picture, and that's because the door, or the shutter, needs to stay open longer to let in enough light for your camera to be able to produce a picture. So when we say long exposure, we usually mean that I'm using a camera that has the shutter that needs to open for long periods of time, and I don't mean a fraction of a second. I mean probably 1 minute, 2 minutes, 10 minutes, sometimes even 20 minutes. So it takes 20 minutes just to produce one picture. So we'll call that a long exposure. Does that make sense?
That's so clever. But is it as easy as pointing a telescope and clicking a button?
Once I actually program the computer app to tell it what I want it to do, then it's just as easy as pushing start, and the computer will control the telescope and the cameras and the focuser all night long, even turning everything off when it's done. So in a sense, yes, it is easy as pushing a button, but on the other hand, there's a little bit of preparation we need to do before I can just push that button.
What's your advice for anyone who wants to get into astrophotography?
It's a good question, and I think sometimes people look at all of this equipment that I have and they think to themselves, that looks really complicated. But in reality, you should always stick with the piece of equipment that you have. Learn the basics. In other words, learn how to set up a tripod, learn the piece of equipment that you actually have, and keep in mind the type of objects that you want to photograph. Once you start there, then you can use things like YouTube and the internet, or you can join our group called the Muslim Astronomers, where we teach people how to use the equipment that they have and that they will enjoy using. And once they learn the fundamentals, then they can branch out from there.
And there you have it, guys. Astrophotography is more than just pictures. It's about discovering the beauty of the universe, one snapshot at a time. So grab your camera, head outside, and who knows, you might even capture a piece of the cosmos.
Nasser, you know it's amazing how much we can learn just by looking up at the sky.
Definitely. The universe is full of mysteries, and telescopes help bring us closer to understanding them. Now, from the vastness of space to the icy beauty of Canada, winter in Ottawa is truly a sight to behold.
Snow-covered streets, dazzling lights, and exciting winter activities. It's like stepping into a winter wonderland.
With that said, let's head over to Canada for a closer look at Ottawa Winterland.
Assalamu alaikum everyone. I'm Liba, your reporter from Canada, bringing you a cool report. But before I head out, let me check the weather. Oh wow, it's minus 16 degrees and the lowest it's gonna go is minus 21. Looks like this won't do. So let's get ready for icy fun and winter magic. Now I'm ready. Winterlude takes part every single year in the capital city of Canada, Ottawa. Winterlude has many experiences: ice skating, snow slides, and even ice sculptures. A special thing that happens in Winterlude is the annual ice sculpting competition. Artists from all around the world come to Canada to compete in their ice sculpting challenge. Let's explore some things Winterlude has to offer. We're here at the Rideau Canal, which is the largest ice rink in the world. It stretches 7.8 kilometers, which is like skating across 140 hockey rinks. The most thrilling part, Snowflake Kingdom. As you can see the gigantic slides and the amazing zip line. Come, let's go have some fun. I'm about to go down this massive snow slide. Push me up. This is a very steep hill. Almost getting there. Almost getting there. Just a few more steps. I can do this. And finally at the top. This festival isn't just about winter. It's about coming together, making friends, and enjoying the magic of the season. Even though the ice will melt, the joy of Winterlude will stay in our hearts. Even if you can't be here in person, I hope you enjoyed Winterlude with me. Stay cozy, stay cool, and I'll see you next time. Laughes!
Wow, that looked incredible. That truly looked like fun.
Unfortunately, that brings us to the end of today's episode. If you enjoyed today's stories, be sure to join us next week for more highlights from around the world.
While you wait, stay connected with us on social media for exclusive content and updates. But until next time, Assalamu alaikum.
Oh, I shall call, oh, I shall call, I shall call, oh, I shall call, I shall call thy mystic to reach all the corners of the earth. Oh, I shall call, oh, I shall call, I shall call, oh, I shall call, I shall call thy mystic to reach all the corners of the earth. Oh, I shall call, oh, I shall call, I shall call, oh, I shall call, I shall call thy mystic to reach all the corners of the earth.